This week on the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network, the A-League Women Finals are in full swing with a 3-1 victory and a 2-2 draw, although which games had those results might surprise you. We'll look ahead to the second legs as Adelaide are up against it, all but ensuring the grand final will be in Melbourne. Elsewhere, Joe Montemurro is quote-unquote locked in as Matildas coach. Mount Druitt continue to reign supreme in the NPL Women's New South Wales. The Futsal Matildas start their Asian Cup campaign, and we introduce a new segment on this episode of the Dubcast. My name is Poletti, and Burke, we're no shortage of things to talk about this week.
Yeah, they really gave us everything they could this week, and yeah, I'm very excited to get into it.
And we will waste no time getting into it. I think we'll start in Gosford. Central Coast Mariners 2, Melbourne City 2. Brooke Nunn with a brace in the 20th and 54th minutes. Letitia McKenna continues to impress with some free kick magic in the 29th minute before Briley Henry in the 35th minute. Holly McNamara came off the bench in this one after what was described as a niggle in training midweek. No Lourdes Bosch, who was described as having pulled up with soreness, and Mariana Speckmeyer continues to be hindered by her hamstring injury. But Burke, the Mariners are still the only side to have not lost to Melbourne City this season, who of course went invincible. It was a 2-2 draw in Melbourne, a 0 draw in Gosford in the regular season, and then a 2-2 draw in Gosford here. What is it about the Mariners that just seem to have City's number, even though they can't take that final step of getting all 3 points?
I don't know. They've kind of wound up being like City's bogey team, except they don't lose to them; they just draw with them. Yeah, I don't know what it is about them. They just don't. They don't want to lose, and City don't seem to want to win against them. So neither of them do those things. They just draw every time. The game was really interesting. I was expecting after City had gone up 2-1 for it to stay that way, but Brooke Nunn clearly had other ideas. There were some really, really good passes and through balls played in this game that were like just unbelievable. And it was it was really good to watch. Like, it was really good football, I feel, from both sides. It kind of looked like towards the end, both sides were like, all right, we'll wait to sort this out next week. Like, we'll let it go. And so they will. The Letitia McKenna goal was insane. She's a freak. Positive. I don't think I need to say anything else there. That the fact that she's done it 2 weeks in a row now is just freak.
Yeah, to do it against Perth Glory in the final game of the season, take the week off, and then do it again, absolutely insane. Like, honestly, like, I know you've been leading the Matildas cap, Letitia McKenna, and I think we might know exactly who we need to be directing that campaign at, and we'll get onto that a little bit later.
I will start writing letters. I will do whatever it takes.
On the Melbourne City front, do they need to be concerned with these injuries? Because, look, it's been a very long season. Things happen, little bit sore here, pull up sore there, something that's just been nagging. It's like, well, we've got the depth to deal with it, but what happens if Lourdes Bosch is still sore next week? There's still no Speckmeyer. Holly McNamara has to come off the bench again. Like, can they find a way to make it through 2 games without all these key forwards?
I think they're going to have to. And I think we will probably see these players, maybe not Speckmeyer, but I could imagine both Holly Mack and Bosch doing whatever they can to make sure that they can play this game, because There's not much more football to be played, and if you consider long seasons, City have had the longest because they have been playing the Champions League as well. So they've played more minutes than any other side in the competition. So that also probably has had a bit of an impact on them too. Not a lot, but still some that you can actually mention it. But yeah, because it's the semi-finals, I'm sure they all want to, make up for where they fell last season, and to do that, they need to get to the final. So I can see them throwing everything in the kitchen sink at it, mostly because they have to.
Yeah, and I think, look, for the Mariners, if they were to fail to beat City, this is where they'll have fallen 2 years in a row since they came back into the competition. Do we look at the season as a success or a failure for the Mariners if they don't make the grand final?
I'd still call it an absolute success. I think they're a great side. They've been positive at every single point. They've made finals. They're the only team that hasn't lost to City so far. Yeah, I think it's a huge success. Emily Husband's done a fantastic job with them. And yeah, even though they've had like injuries and other sorts of things happening, they've, yeah, pulled up really, really well.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to Emily Husband as a coach who's just found ways to, continually motivate her squad, stick players in, essentially, MacGyvering solutions in terms of the formation and player positioning and whatnot. One other thing I wanted to touch on this game before we move on was some of the goalkeeping choices in this game. Two of the goals coming directly because Melina Mires and Sarah Langman both mistimed their runs out of the box. Melina Mires has not been prone to a mistake this season, Burke, but the Sarah Langman one surprised me. She has been near flawless all season, and has
Yeah.
probably gone underrated in the goalkeeper of the year conversation, in part because Claudia Jenkins and Sally James have been so good, and then sort of like the third name on that list for a while was Sham Karmas, who was doing it in an incredibly poor Wanderers side, and sort of began to fell away as the season went on. But yeah, there's just a rare mistake from Langman there.
Yeah, it was very odd. And when watching the not the Bradley Henry goal, when I was watching the second Brooke Nunn goal, all I could think was, yeah, she watched Bradley Henry do that and go, yeah, I want that. I'm gonna do that too.
And I can't blame Brooke Nunn one bit for that. The other semi-final was Melbourne victory 3, Adelaide 1 in Adelaide. Emily Gilnick opened the scoring in the 38th minute before Erin Healy cancelled that out like 90 seconds later. And then Claudia Bunge with with a brace from two corners in the 77th and 88th minute. And Burke, I know Erin Healy was sort of not at her best in terms of her shooting prowess, but she got the goal. How does she sort of fix that for next week? Because if Adelaide has overcome this deficit, she's going to need to put her shooting boots on and actually make sure that they're working.
Yeah, I think it's really going to be a case of her just kind of having to lock in and find a deeper or a higher gear to go into, because yeah, they have a deficit. They know they have it. It's not like the City Central Coast game where they're essentially just playing another game and the winner goes through. If Adelaide want this, they have to really, really sort of knuckle down and make it happen. Most important thing in terms of making it happen would probably be remembering that when a corner is happening against them, that they should defend those corners, and not leave the incredibly tall centre backs free to do whatever they like. It's probably the best place they could start.
Yeah, that was like they'd done it in the 77th minute, and then 10 minutes later, or like just after 10 minutes later, it was just like, oh yeah, let's do that again because that worked out so well the first time. Like, how do you leave Claudia Bunge all alone? Like, particularly that second one, I'm just like, She's literally all alone at the far post. What are you doing? Like, she's lost her mark, and then it's just like a free header on goal after she's already done it. Like, I don't.
They are,
I couldn't
unfortunately,
get.
Adelaide are the second recipients of the Fell for It Again award, after Perth Glory won it for letting Taylor Otto and Alexia Apostolakis run the same goal routine on them twice. Adelaide, you're you are the next ones to win because they didn't learn. They didn't learn.
No, they did not. Tiana Karabassis came off in this game. It's since been revealed in an injury update from Adelaide United that she suffered a concussion, and that she subbed out of the game following on-field concussion testing. Further testing on Monday confirmed the diagnosis, with concussion protocols commencing upon cessation of symptoms. That probably rules. I believe that rules her out of Saturday's game, which is the second leg, and the first game next week. Burke, that's a big loss, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. But concussions are not something to take lightly at all. So definitely, I'm really glad that we have these protocols in place because head injuries are not to be trifled with. So
No, they're not. As someone who has had several concussions, don't mess with concussions. Not nice. And I think that's a perfect place to move on to our leg 2 previews. So Adelaide, the reverse fixture, Melbourne Victory versus Adelaide, will be at the home of the Matildas, 2:15 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. This one is going to be on 10 Bold, in addition to 10 Play and Paramount Plus. So Adelaide, they're down by 2 goals. So if they want to take it to extra time, they need to score at least 2, probably more, because I can't imagine Melbourne Victory being kept off the score sheet for 90 minutes. So they'll probably have to score at least 3 goals just to take it to extra time. 4 if they want to win it inside the 90 minutes. How do Adelaide find a way to make this game competitive, Burke?
I think it's what I was saying before. They're just going to have to lock in. They're going to have to lock in like no team has locked in before. I was saying on the other podcast that I'm on, the Beyond 90 pod, that I would like to introduce a word to them called remontada. Anyone? Come back, please, in Spanish. Yeah, that should be the only word that they're saying to each other in their trainings and during this game. Yeah, they're just gonna have to want it, and I hope they get a decent amount of traveling fans. I know Adelaide usually do. I know when they've had like their double headers and stuff in Melbourne, the traveling fans were really good in that they came for the women's game and stayed the whole way through the women's game and for the men's game. So I hope they do get a bit of support, because home of the Matildas is, well, not nice to play at unsupported.
Look, all I want to say is, like, if there is only one Adelaide fan that travels, as long as it is Red Week Steve, I am okay by that. On the Melbourne Victory side of things,
City. Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, we'll get to that game in a moment. I know you want to talk about Melbourne City, Burke, which is surprising given that they're playing Control Alt Delete Field. But I
we'll get there. We'll get to that.
How should Melbourne Victory approach this? They've got a 2-goal lead. They can afford a error. I don't want to say they can afford multiple errors, but they can probably afford at least one error or slip up. Do they park the bus? Do they change what's been working all season? Do they just treat it as if it's 0-0 and just try to win the game? Like, because surely, like, if they take a 1-0 lead, that seals it?
Yeah, I would say treating it as if it's 0-0, because they can obviously afford to. They're in pole position here. Would probably be the best way to go about it, because it'll keep them from making the error that, even though they're allowed to make it, they should not be making, kind of thing. And even though you're allowed to make an error, I don't think you want to be making an error under Jeff Hopkins' watch in this kind of a game.
I mean, if you listened to one of the mini pods from the Far Post podcast last week, I think Kayla Morrison sums it up as to why you don't necessarily want to make an error under Jeff Hopkins, because he might just tell your goalkeeper to break your jaw. Um,
But it
the, the, the,
worked.
the, yeah, I mean,
The situation worked because Claudia Bunge absolutely clattered Kayla Morrison for that first goal, and Kayla Morrison didn't look scared at all because she's been so used to Newborn coming out to punch her in the head that she was ready for it. So low key, his tactic did work.
it did, and I would highly recommend you go listen to that one if you haven't already, and once you finish listening to this. Now, the other semi-final, so will be 2 p.m. on Sunday, which I didn't realize was Mother's Day until probably about 2 days ago, if that. Um, we'll see Melbourne City host the Central Coast Mariners at Casey Fields. City are at home. It's not much of a home, but it is a home. Look, the Mariners are resilient. They've shown that they can take it to City, as we touched on earlier. They got a 2-2 draw there earlier this season. I mean, for me, I think extra time is the favourite here. Like, I think if you would ask me to pick a result from this game after 90 minutes, I'm picking draw in extra time, Burke.
I think that's fair if City play the way that they played in the first leg. If they get some of their, other starting players back and are able to put, their sort of regular starting 11 out, I could see it going City's way. But I'm really annoyed about this time slot because it's on Mother's Day. Because I couldn't think, no offense to no Melbourne Cities, I couldn't think of anything worse than trying to take my mother out to Casey for Mother's Day. And also, she would not let me do that. Like, she would actually tell me she'd rather have no daughter at all than one that tries to make her do that. Um, and it's such a bad time because I can't actually get to this game because do you know where I'm going to be? At lunch for Mother's Day. I'm going to be at the table having to pull up Paramount Plus and having everyone like leaning over my shoulder, being like, "What are you watching? What's on? What's on?" Oh, yeah.
I'm watching Melbourne City lose because they just choked it away.
Yep.
Look, I understand the kickoff time, as stupid as it is. I understand because they've got to account for extra time. I'm assuming that the broadcast lighting is just not appropriate at Casey Fields to meet their minimum broadcast standards. But I mean, why have this game at Casey Fields at all? The home of the Matildas should be available. They're not.
Who would be at the home of the Matildas? Who would be there?
Maybe NPL, but like.
But who would be there that's more important than your national league?
Exactly. Like I'm sure Football Victoria can step.
What are we doing?
I know it's insane. And we will get more into that a little bit later with the debate corner. Spoiler alert: I have not given Burke the topic for this debate corner.
I got really scared,
and I've done that deliberately.
Yeah, I'm scared.
So on the Mariners side of things, Burke, is it just a case of they just continue doing what they've done all season and hope that they can get a 1-goal lead here?
Yeah, because what they've been doing has worked. That they've gotten this far, haven't they? I think it'd be a bit silly to change it now. I was a bit surprised that they played Taryn King because she's still very much coming back from an ACL. So to put her into a game that is such high stakes, especially when she hasn't been playing full games or that many minutes anyway, was really interesting. So I'm curious to see if they'll do that again. They may have to if Taylor Ray still isn't back. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting move. It clearly, it didn't hurt them, clearly, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can imagine it was probably just because Taylor Ray not available for this game. It was a very nasty injury, so I can't imagine she'll be available next week either. So that is our semi-final chat. We will make way now to the national stage. So this one was dropped on Saturday night during Sydney FC, during Sydney FC's trip to Melbourne City in the A-League men. Andy Harper describing the Joe Montemurro Football Australia contract situation as Joe Montemurro being locked in as the next Matildas coach. And the last time Andy Harper dropped news like this in a broadcast was Western United versus Sydney FC in the A-League men as well, where he announced the sacking of Dwight York from MacArthur FC, which was announced less than 2 hours later. So he has track record here of being correct with these announcements. And then just before we started recording, French outlet L'Equipe announced that per their understanding, the departure of the Australian is already underway from Lyon, the Australian being Joe Montemurro. So, I mean, do we just assume at this point that it is locked in, to quote Andy Harper, that this is done, that we literally all we have to wait now for is the official announcement from Football Australia?
I mean, I don't know about the rest of yous, but I've been assuming this since the day Tony G left. I'm just low-key mad that they let it take this long when they could have organized this from the start, because they knew Tony was leaving and Joe didn't have the contract with Lyon. So it all seems very silly and a huge waste of 12 months. But what can you do? This is where we are, and this is what we have to deal with. Yeah, I think at some point along the line, the Matildas were going to be coached by Joe Montemurro. And this just happens to be the point that they've finally lined everything up and are actually pulling the trigger on that. So, yeah, I mean, we've had the conversations. We've brought up the other possible candidates. They're clearly not going with any of those. It's quite obviously going to be Joe, because there's physically no one left unless they make it me. Like, unless they magic out someone. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've had my thoughts on this as well, and I'm pretty sure I said this on the Tuesday edition of the Roundball Australia podcast. I don't get why it's taken 14 months for this to happen. Yeah. He left Juventus in I want to say it was March off the top of my head. So we're approaching 14 months of this having happened. Like, we're 12 months on from, or we're just short of 12 months on from the All-Stars game where he was available under contract. He wasn't under contract. He was ready to go. And then, Lyon snap him up, and then suddenly it's Tony Gustafsson departs. Like, unless there was something in Gustafsson's contract which basically said, hey, if you reach X milestone at the Olympics, we automatically have to give you a new 4-year deal. I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't have gone with, okay, Tony's our man, we're going to see him through to the Olympics, Joe, but here's a shiny, nice contract for you that we'll sign you to now to take effect as soon as our Olympic campaign is over, because you're clearly the person we've identified as wanting the job. And you know how I know that you can do that, Burke? Because Tony Gustafsson is currently sitting in wait in Sweden, waiting for the Euros to end before he can take up his role with the Swedish women's national team, because he's already signed his contract for the end of the Euros.
That's crazy. I didn't know that people could plan for the future. I wish we could do that.
I mean, Tony Gustafsson said, he never said, but there were certainly reports and indications that he wanted out because he wanted to leave to go as an assistant to the Swedish men's team. Like, this was in November of 2023. So, no, 23? Yes, 23. That's how long this has been going on for. It's been going on for 18 months that Gustafsson wanted out, and we still don't have a coach. It's infuriating. I'm getting mad.
Yeah. But it's okay. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We just have to
Yeah.
pray it is not a train.
And the light at the end of that tunnel is a 55-year-old angel in the form of Joe Montemurro. And hopefully it doesn't end badly. So I think what we'll do now is we will head to the debate corner, a new segment that I'm choosing to debut here. Now, the way this is going to work is I'm going to give Burke the topic, and I'm going to go second if I disagree with Burke's take, because there is a good chance that I will just agree with what she is going to say. And
Okay.
today's topic, Burke, that I have deliberately kept you in the dark about is that the APL was intending to play both of the second leg semi-finals as double headers. Discuss. Because I can tell you that it will be Ironbark Fields on Friday night in the A-League men, and obviously we've got home of the Matildas and Casey Fields in the A-League women. No one's getting Amy Park, and I genuinely think the only reason you don't announce this earlier is because you are hoping that Melbourne City and Melbourne Victory both play at home in both competitions, and you run them as double headers.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say I do agree there. It did look like the stars were lining up for that, or so the APL had hoped. I, yeah, 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 but unfortunately they haven't, so now they've had to scramble to get them played elsewhere because they won't play them on the same day, will they? And that's why they're at Casey. God.
And I don't disagree with that premise. So, no debate tonight, unfortunately, on our first edition of the Debate Corner.
I'm safe.
Um, I just can't believe this. But no, actually, no, I can believe this because this tracks with what the APL have done. This tracks with the treatment of women's football in this country, where it is an afterthought in a lot of cases. Like, there is no universe in which finals of your competition should be being played as a double header.
No,
There is no universe like they should. And
no.
like I will take. I want to credit Anna Harrington with the idea of playing both semi-finals on the same day at Amy Park. You try to make it a women's festival of semi-final football, get everyone in, try to get the crowd numbers up. I can take that idea. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can take that idea. But
I
to play them
think,
as double headers with men's games,
yeah.
ugh.
Actually, I think the APL lucked out really hard that it didn't happen for them that they could do this because the sheer amount of backlash they would receive from the fans would be unreal. You'd have people from other clubs weighing in as well, like fans from other teams, just because it shows how awful the treatment is of the women's game here. Yeah, so if anything, it was actually a stroke of luck that they didn't get what it looked like they may have wanted because it would not have ended well. I would have written such a think piece. It would have been insane. So good job, um, men's football, I guess, for saving the APL from that. I think.
Yeah. I mean, look, uh, in the announcement of the second leg fixtures was the confirmation that the A-League Women Grand Final will be held on either Saturday the 17th of May or Sunday the 18th of May. Presumably they're waiting to see whether Melbourne City qualify or not.
Mm,
Um, uh, uh, but, you know, you're going to have a situation where Melbourne Victory men would be potentially playing a home first leg semi final. Western United having to play a first home leg semi final. And I believe that game would see those two match up against each other. I think if the results play out the way I think they're going to play out. So that could be interesting. Um, with the idea being that you still have to go to Amy Park for the A-League Women Grand Final, presumably Amy Park. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Which would I mean, just I don't know. This whole thing is just a basket case, and I'm starting to get really, really sick of it, Burke. And returning to the national stage now, the Australian women's national futsal team, also known as the Futsal Matildas, colloquially, of course, not an official nickname. By the time you listen to this episode, they will have played their opening group stage game at the AFC Women's Futsal Asian Cup against host nation China. So hopefully we'll have a good result there. Their remaining group stage games, we'll see them play Uzbekistan at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on Thursday the 8th, and Taiwan also at 7 p.m. on Saturday the 10th of May. So very much looking forward to that. They went 4 from 4 in qualifying. Was it 5 from 5? A point is they were undefeated after qualifying earlier this year in Uzbekistan, including a win against Uzbekistan, who they play on Thursday. So I very much like their odds to go through to the knockout stages, Burke.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be a really fun tournament, and you can watch it on YouTube, I believe, the AFC YouTube channel. So you can actually
yes. So if you want
clock
to,
in.
presumably you should be able to go back and rewatch the live stream if you missed it tonight, because I understand 10 p.m. on a work night is a very late kickoff time for people who are not you or me, Burke, who will just persevere through crazy kickoff times. So if you head to the AFC Asian Cup YouTube channel, you should be able to find it there, and it's presumably where you'll be able to find all games throughout this tournament. So hopefully we're talking about a knockout stage win next week, or at least previewing a knockout stage game. Other news to report: Tegan Micah will depart Liverpool at the end of the season as she was not offered a new contract. Burke, you know the WSL a lot better than I do. Any idea where she might end up?
Hopefully somewhere that actually respects her and wants to play her, because she is a very good goalkeeper. And I know she's been hampered by injuries, but she seems to be in the clear now, so I don't see why they weren't playing her. But that's Liverpool's problem, not mine. I imagine she'd probably want to stay in Europe. I don't know. I can't think of any WSL teams that are looking for a keeper. But she's definitely first keeper material. Like, she should not have been wasting away on Liverpool's bench. So wherever she goes, I hope it's to a first position.
Well, there might be one up for grabs because Sydney FC have announced that Talia Franco is departing after 4 years. Sydney FC, of course, using 4 goalkeepers this season, including Brianna Edwards, Jasmine Black, who I believe Teo Pellizzeri reported in a broadcast that has signed a deal with a college team that is yet to be named. And when I interviewed her earlier this season, she said that she was looking for a move to the US college system. And no update on Bethany Mason-Jones as of yet. So, not Talia Franco, Tegan Micah and Sky Blue, Burke. You'll probably say no, but
I will.
Matilda back in Australia? I mean...
That I do like. I like that. Not in that particular squad. They'd have to put out something pretty decent to bring her back, considering what Sydney looked like this season.
Yeah, look, I can't imagine that would happen. I just thought it made for a very good segue into the next piece of news. But just remember, in Burke's world, sky blue equals bad, city blue equals good, even though they're the same shade of blue. More news, Kyra Cooney-Cross still not playing at Arsenal. Burke has been very much underused since their coaching change earlier this season. does Cara Cooney-Cross maybe try to use the summer to find somewhere else to play, or does she try to gut it out at Arsenal because it's a very good squad with um, a lot of success to it and demands that over a long season should see her playing more, even if it's not quite working out at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably it's hard to say with Arsenal. It's very hard to say because of their fan base, but there are probably some players in the squad that should be moving on following the conclusion of this season. I don't think Kara is one of them. I mean, you can't deny her skill. She was practically like scouted by Ian Wright at the Women's World Cup. He got her there in my mind at least. Yeah, and I think a lot of the players. I think she really fits the system personally, especially when they play as a double pivot. It just depends on who they play her with, because either I don't think she works or it doesn't work when she and Mariona Caldente would play as a pivot. I don't think either of them are really suited to playing with each other, but they also haven't really played together, so that doesn't help. Um, but yeah, no, I do think she should stay, or at least I guess get to the end of the season and have some serious conversations before um, looking outwards. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll keep across that as well. We'll head to the NPL now. One team now remains atop the NPL Women's New South Wales as Mount Druitt are now the only undefeated side after 9 rounds with 7 wins and 2 draws on 23 points as Manly United went down 1-0 to Bulls FC Academy. And yes, that is the academy affiliation of MacArthur FC, who play their games out of Northbridge Oval, which, if you know anything about Sydney geography, is a very, very long way away from Campbelltown. While the other undefeated team, the Northern Tigers, lost to the aforementioned Mount Druitt 3-1 and picked up a red card in the process. The game I called this week saw Sydney Uni back at home for the first time this season with the newly relayed pitch hosting the Western Sydney Wanderers Academy, and Sophia Fante late in stoppage time with a save of the season contender to deny the Wanderers a late equaliser. You can head to the NPL New South Wales social channels to see that save. It is well worth checking out. While this comes courtesy of a friend of the podcast, Megan, several A-League women players have already started to return to the NPL Women's New South Wales competition, with the transfer window having already opened as of the 30th of April. Morgan Roberts has made her way to the Gladesville Ravens, so she will be sticking at the Arctic Circle, just not for NWS Spirit this year. She will be going to the other tenant of the Arctic Circle. Ina Harada has made her way to Mount Druitt and played in their 3-1 win. Bree Edwards has gone back to the Illawarra Stingrays, where she was last year as well. I believe it was a 1-0 win for Edwards on her return, with the game's lone goal being scored by her twin sister Siobhan Edwards, who I very much want to see in the A-League Women next season. And it's a timely move with Kiara O'Shea currently out with injury. I believe it is a hip injury, so good timing for the Stingrays. And Amber Lookmeyer, in an already announced move, has gone back to Bulls FC Academy, where she won the Golden Boot last year for the competition, scoring 23 goals in 23 games. Look, I'd be lying if I said I've kept across some of the other NPLs this week. I have not. So this very much is the NPL New South Wales segment, unless Burke has anything that she wants to add.
Down in Vic, you've got South Melbourne still undefeated. They're 5 wins, 2 draws, and then got equal in, well, sort of equal in second place. Alamein Heidelberg United, second and third, and then Borundara Eagles down in fourth. It's shaping up to be pretty interesting, but it does look like, at least right now, that South Melbourne will probably be the ones to win it. I mean, they've got They've scored 24 goals already. So they're kind of on a bit of a tear. But they are only 1 point ahead of Alamein and Heidelberg United. So
it's giving me real Melbourne victory vibes here, where it's just like the
yeah,
goal difference is just so massive, but they're just like
yeah,
you're only a point ahead, you're only 2 points ahead,
they've got
sort of vibe.
a goal difference of plus 17.
A plus 17 goal difference in 7 games.
Oh, is it 7
having
games?
scored
Or are we
24
up to?
goals.
I think we might be up to. Oh no, it is round 7. Oh
That's,
God, it's only round 7.
that is insane work by South Melbourne, and I might have to head to the NPL Victoria YouTube channel to have a look at them play this week if I get the chance. Check with your state federations as to where you can view NPL games. Most of them are broadcasting on YouTube, some with commentary and some without commentary. Or check your state federation's website and get to a game. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Particularly with the A-League women starting to wrap up. I cannot recommend it enough. But Burke, that will do for this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia Podcast Network. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. We do apologise for the lack of an opening theme at the moment. We've run into some slight copyright issues, despite the fact that it is supposed to be royalty-free music, so we've had to temporarily pause that, and we are looking at alternative options, as we do feel it does add something to the episode. And as always, if you have topics that you want us to discuss in the off season, please get in touch. We'd absolutely love to take some deep dives into some of these longer topics. I would also like to apologise. I did tease last week that we were going to get into part 1 of our A-League Women's Season Review, and then everything else happened. So it is still on the list to occur, and we'll get to it as soon as we can. But Burke, big episode this week, and next week we'll have a grand final preview.
We will. It's crazy to think about that we're already here. It's been a good season, though.
It has been a very good season, and yet, despite the fact it is quite literally the longest season in A-League women's history, it still does not feel long enough.
No, not at all. Keep it going all year round. Never stop.
Hopefully with the next CBA, we'll get year-round contracts, and then we can have more than 23 rounds in a season. But we thank you all very much for tuning in, and we look forward to coming back next week to preview the A-League Women Grand Final.